This episode is brought to you by Sir Charles Hard Cider, which is proudly brewed in Philadelphia by Original 13 Cider Works. Visit their tasting room on American Street to enjoy their cider, as well as locally sourced food from their kitchen. Look for Sir Charles Hard Cider in local establishments and visit sircharlescider.com for more information.
Surprise! It is your soon-to-be favorite millennial black woman who talk about life, taboo topics, and the black experience. We trust no one and question the bullshit. I am Tiffany, and we are the Get Your Life Project. And this week we're going to be talking about 9 to 5 just to stay alive. But before we get into that, y'all want to go ahead and tell the people who you are?
Sure.
We're going to go over and start from my right.
Oh. Sorry. I'm Ashley. Or at least I think so. No, my name's Ashley. I'm a college student. I'm an artist. I'm just trying to be somebody right now, guys. Okay? So, yeah, power to you. Thanks.
I am Sierra, a.k.a. Seabirdie, a.k.a. Sea Nasties on the weekends. I am going through my quarter-life crisis, and I thought this podcast might help me. Is this the AA meeting? Did I walk into the right room?
Sierra, I think you walked into the wrong room.
5 steps,
shit.
girl. 5 steps.
Oh, all right. I'm going to go.
We can help you, though. You can get your life here.
Please.
I'm Bambai. I'm an ex-9-to-5er, current grad student.
Yo, she lucky, yo.
And for a gentle refresher, I was the one screaming about sex positivity and vaginas in episode 2. So episode 3 is my turn at bat. And just to get the conversation started, let's start with how did everybody feel about your first 9 to 5 or corporate experience?
I never had one. I've never actually had a 9 to 5, but I had like an internship that was very similar. I was doing things that I loved. I was doing like motion graphics, animation, and things like that. But it was very like, I remember making lunch in the morning, which was like a nice thing. But I was like, if I'm doing this for the rest of my life,
Oh my God.
like I couldn't, even if it's something that I love, like I can't be stuck in this like cube and like look over at my like coworker who's like, hey, and I'm like, I can't do this for 2 years. So I can't do it for the rest of my life is what I'm saying. So I learned from that practical work environments just wouldn't work out for me. And that's okay.
I think it was very jarring. Like, it was exciting at first. It was like, oh, I'm a real adult. I am waking up early, going to work, paycheck, let's go. But after, like, I worked 9 to 5 for 2 years. But, like, year 1, I legit, like, loathed the fact that I knew exactly what I would be doing a Tuesday, like, at 9 a.m. 3 weeks from now. I'll be like, I'm going to be at work. Of course, that's what I'm going to be doing. And, like, I think the expectations in college, you're like, oh, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to love it. It's going to be great. And even if you enjoy, like, I generally enjoyed my job on most days, but my supervisor was trash. And just the actual monotonous experience.
I
Of,
mean,
like,
what were you doing at
waking
your first 9 to 5? What did you do?
I worked in an in vitro fertilization lab, so sperm banking, egg banking, storing embryos, all of that stuff. So from a science perspective,
She
I
worked
was
at a baby bank.
it was so much fun. Like, it was really fun from the science perspective. I feel like I learned a lot, but it was hectic. Like, there's some code words, like, during the interviewing process, my trash ass supervisor was like, oh, like, you will never be bored here. Code for you're going to be running around. Like, you walk in and you'll be running until the time you, like, leave, because that's how busy it's going to be. So I think the lack of, like, transparency. When I started, I didn't know what I was getting into. And that kind of, like, ate at my soul a little bit.
So I come from a little bit of a different background. My first experience outside of my bachelor's degree was a hotel job, which had non-traditional hours. I worked primarily 3 to 11 once I graduated. And then after people quit or got fired or they moved on to better opportunities, I ended up getting bumped up to a 7 to 3 position, which was, again, a little bit out of the norm for a 9 to 5 job. Working at a hotel was terrible because I realized I was not a customer service person. And I actually really fucking hate people. And that's like the general thing. You get a lot of, unfortunately, very high caliber people that would like to come and stay with their families and visit Philadelphia. And I actually learned that I hate Philadelphia because of that fucking place. And I also hate tourists. So from that, I transitioned over after 2 years to a 9-to-5 job. And it was a relief because on the weekends, I'm actually off instead of having like Thursdays and Wednesdays off during the week, or like it kind of gave me some stability. But I now hate it because of my manager, who's pretty shitty. I actually like my job. If it wasn't for her, I could probably stay there for a couple more years. But I actually do really dislike her. She's a terrible person, and if she ever hears this, I want her to know that this was meant for her.
Wow.
We're gonna find her.
Hold on, guys. You know, we're gonna get into.
We're gonna find her.
These supervisors.
Yeah. So yeah,
we got whole questions before we like.
I will find you.
We will find you.
I will call you.
But not that deep.
Maybe not that,
deep.
but like taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna find her.
Yep.
And she gonna get you.
9 to 5 was a literal 9 to 5. I worked at a library assistant at an institution that shall not be named. And I had, kids with trust funds throwing their IDs at me like across the circulation desk.
Nice.
And like yelling at me about how they didn't want to pay like $3 fines. I'm like, but I didn't do the. Yes, you did. You will find that in customer service, everything is actually your fault.
It is.
Like Sierra, I too hate everyone. And my first 9 to 5 taught me that. Like, I hate everyone and everything.
So dark.
But in hindsight, that job was amazing because I didn't have to do nothing.
Yo, you had it so easy,
I
bro.
did because
Like,
I really
was so
got
jelly.
paid to do nothing. I made, a solid, unlivable $28,000 a year. It was fun because I like lived at home and spent all my money on like chicken. But now I pay rent, so I can never like go back to that job. But that job was great because I was actually like low key kind of happy during that job. And now
She didn't know it though. Like that's the crazy part. Like you didn't know how happy you were until you are not happy now.
So we talked about how we hate all of our jobs. So like individually, what do you think you need like from a job? Or maybe from a career, or maybe just a job. Maybe we need to like get into the difference between jobs and careers. I don't think many of us are actually doing what we want to be doing quite yet. So for now, we all have jobs instead of careers. So what do you need from your job in order to not hate life all the time?
I think the supervisors really play a role. Like the people you are working with and the people you are working for can really shape like your working experience. For me personally, I found that like I'm one of those weird people where if I'm in a situation long enough, I can find a way to enjoy it. So I'll sit there and be like, oh, this is the positive thing about it. Except with people, I can't do that with people. I can do that with tasks. I can be like, okay, like this is what I like about this task. But if you have a shitty ass manager, you can't really like do anything about that. You just have to sit there and take it because they're in power. Like I had a manager who would be like, oh, like you can't leave right now because this thing that has to be done, I've chosen you to do it. And I'll be like, I don't get overtime here, but it doesn't matter. It's people's embryos. I can't just be like, oh, I don't care. Like, let's just let them thaw. So like things like that where like I felt like I didn't have a choice. Like, oh, I can't be like, no, I don't want to do that. Or that's not possible for me right now. It's like, oh no, you're owned by the company. And that feeling is not great. I think it's a stark contrast to college where you're like, all right, like, I can go to class. I can decide not to. But at work, you have to be there. They'll be like, you are coming in tomorrow. You know that, right? So, yeah. I don't know. I think I need good communication with the supervisor who is not breathing down my fucking neck. I think that's what I need. Be successful.
I think that all supervisors come from hell.
Wow.
Oh.
And the reason that I say that is that every supervisor that I've ever had, they either... when you initially meet them, they seem normal, and then you slowly see them descend into madness. So, like, for example, I had a supervisor when I was in college and I was an RA who, when I initially met this man, he was amazing. And then I watched him descend into hell, and he was terrible and started, like, yelling at us for no reason. Subsequently, after that, my next job, which was the hotel, that person was a certifiable lunatic. But you could, like, direct his crazy. Which usually was good because it was like towards the guests, which was awesome. You like when they got yelled at because they yelled at you. The one that I have now, I think that she obviously is the devil.
Why? Like, what experiences?
So, like, the experiences that you had. So, like, okay, I'll give you a story time, fellas. When I worked at the hotel, the reason that I actually quit was because my supervisor told me that he changed the schedule because one of my coworkers said I didn't want to work during the holidays. I'm like, but you didn't hear that from me. And I had to call him. I'm like, so why did you change the schedule? He's like, because you told so-and-so that you didn't want to be here and that is unacceptable. And how could you tell them that? And I'm like, but I didn't tell you that. So why did you change the schedule? Well, I'm going to change it back, but you going to be here? I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll be here. So I came back and I quit.
You should always trust information from third parties.
From third parties. Like, they don't dictate my money. Like, how are you letting a lowly coworker tell you how to like pay me? So that's
check.
like one, right? Can I get a fact check, please?
You can.
Jesus Christ, it's like alternative facts out here. It was true. I didn't want to work, but but that's still not a reason to change my schedule. That was like a heavy breach in like the human resources department. I'm in HR now, so I know. But anyway. No, it was pretty terrible. And I think that was one of the experiences that I had that kind of shaped the way that I viewed that person overall. And it just wasn't a good experience. It makes you feel like you don't have a say in anything. Like you're a victim as somebody else. You are, but like you're a victim at somebody else's whim. Like as soon as they decide they want to have a tantrum, you are subject to that. And you can't really do anything about it, especially if you need money. Like if you're out on your own. Somebody would have had to suck that up in a position. Luckily, I didn't have to in that time, to just go ahead and like, all right, yeah, I got to come to work and make my money. So people were able to support me until I got back on my feet. But unfortunately, there's a Susie that might have been in that same situation that would have been like, damn, I got to go back to work because I need the money.
That's such an important thing to say. Like, I feel like for me, that was the thing. It was like, I am taking care of myself. Like, I'm paying all my bills. So if I all of a sudden quit because I don't feel like it, like,
yeah,
what am I going to do with my life? Like,
dance on the street for change?
I mean,
I can't do that because visa restrictions.
Oh,
like, so it's like
not from here.
Yeah, I'm like, you like that thought of like, oh, I'm an adult and like, quote unquote, that's what it means to be an adult. So
Do things you
I don't
want
want
to
to go
do.
back to having to ask for money. So I have to tap dance at this job to like
like a monkey.
We're all actually shucking and jiving.
Yeah, I've like never had like I've never had like a horrible experience with a manager. But in terms of like what I might need within the workplace, I guess it's just not being treated like a product. Maybe that's just me being like sensitive and being a millennial.
Oh god.
But
I just want to feel heard.
yeah, like, but yeah, and I think like past managers, have tried to do that in some ways. Like they haven't been like terribly like horrible or anything like that. But I've had experiences where like I'm training to like learn something new. Like I used to work at a grocery store and I was training to work in customer service, like the actual customer service desk. And there were like plenty of times where I kind of felt like sort of like hopeless, and I'd be like, hey, can you come help me? And he would like be in his own like head of like, oh man, you by now you should have got it. And I'm like, no. Like people want lottery, people are trying to return things and they're getting upset with me, and I'm like, I need your help. But it seemed like
It's
a
like
lot of times he was in his own like thing.
Because how dare you not be really advanced in this thing that you've never had to do before? How dare you? Like, I feel like jobs really throw you into like open waters, expecting you to be out
already
here
know.
being a renaissance woman when you've never had to do any of the shit that they out here asking
so
you
you
to do.
felt like ill prepared.
Yeah. I feel like the training at all the jobs I've had has been garbage.
Subpar. Poor.
Like completely. They're like, here's these smooth 2 weeks, maybe. Sometimes that's them being generous. Sometimes you have like a week or a weekend,
Yeah.
and they like, here, know how to do taxes and do finances. But I was like an English major. I don't know nothing about numbers.
Or they'll do the
We
wonderful
can't
thing where they compare you to
historically
your
count.
other like advanced coworker. They're like, hey, they know how to do it already. Why don't you? I'm like, because
They went to school for it.
I'm
because
not them. Like, because I'm like maybe another person. Like,
I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because it's the science. It was like a lot of training, but not enough like mental health preparation. Like no one was like, the amount of stress you're going to experience at this job, you're going to want to jump out of a window. Like it was like, oh, training, like I knew all the technical stuff, but I didn't know what to do if like a parent comes in crying. They're like, oh, I don't have a scheduled pickup right now, but I'm ovulating, I need to have this like I'm like, what? Like I don't know how to deal with the emotions of this job, like, or going through just like I'm having a bad day and I don't want to be here. How do I process that and still work 8 hours?
If you don't,
like,
there's such a lack of emotional
you're
support.
not really like allowed to be human like at your jobs. Like and even working in customer service, sometimes like you get crappy customers, but then sometimes you just get customers that are like want to talk and just want to like know honestly how is this product
is this? Yeah.
and I'm like, it's trash, like it's not good, but they're like don't say that, you can't say that'll make us look bad. I'm like, but these cookies are like stale, like they don't taste
you're
good.
a company man. When you're on company time, you're the company man. So they don't want you to like have feelings. I got that a lot because I have a very expressive face. 9 times out of 10,
fix your face.
Right. 9 times out of 10, you could probably tell what I was thinking from my facial expression. So when I had like angry customers come in, I'm like, oh, Lord, save me. And you could tell that I was like annoyed, angry, upset. And it's like, why you ain't smiling, girl? Why you gotta smile? You look so upset. The customers could tell you gotta smile. And it's like, I don't want to smile. I don't like anything that's happening right now.
You have to be Pennywise the clown.
You do.
At your jobs. You have to be out here with like a painted on like bozo smile on your face. That's actually the key to success.
Or sometimes you smile a lot and you get the wrong intention. Like
Lord,
you smile and you're too nice and you're too friendly, and the customer is like, oh, your boyfriend work here? Oh, tell your boyfriend. I'm like, what? Tell your boyfriend
this
I'm
is
here
my
now.
job to smile.
I'm like, and then I like had to remember for a minute that, oh, this is wrong. Like, this is not chitter chatter like banter. Like he is invading my space and I can say no. Move on, sir.
Right. I'm like that, like
Sexual
having to
harassment
like
That's a
and
separate,
have certain ways of
episode.
being for real, like different ways of being, plus like racial battle fatigue, plus what like little weird things. Like I had a supervisor who was like, "Oh, you can't play rap, like any rap, because it's very like it makes the clients uncomfortable." But I'm like, first of all, you didn't even specify what type of rap it was. Like she would be at meetings like, "Oh, V, you're giving an attitude," and it's like, no, I'm just quiet, but because of the way I look, you assume that me not agreeing with everything that you're saying is like me having an attitude. Yeah. No. And then you can't say that in a work environment. Like I was like, who do I even talk to about this?
It's like sometimes
HR, but sometimes HR isn't just trying to end it.
Yeah. And if they're on the side of the person, it's just like if I knew, okay, she gets along with that person. How do I even start that conversation? Not even in a malicious way, but just like, hey, this happened. I don't know if this is okay. Like I feel uncomfortable right now.
I mean, since we've gotten into that, I mean, what is everyone's thoughts on being a woman of color in the workplace? And what are some of your most triggering moments?
Hair, like changing hair.
Oh my God.
And people's crazy ass comments as a result of it.
It's like wonderful. No, it's not. Like working like
working while black.
Working in a space where like you have like so many interactions and you have a lot of coworkers all within like one grouping. I work in a kitchen right now. And so like I have one coworker who was like very much, girl, shrinkage is real. And I was like, what are you like? And she's like, I'm like, I don't know whether to be like,
is she black?
She's white.
Okay.
And so I'm just like, I don't know how to respond to this. Like, this is okay, but no, it's not. I don't know. And then like the hey girl, hey.
Oh God.
Or like all black girls must love Beyonce, so let's have a conversation about it. And I'm like,
you're like, I don't even know homeboy. Like who even is Beyonce? I don't know that.
There's just a lot of like assumptions that are already made about you. And sometimes I know it's not like intentional, it's learned, but it's like, when do you kind of like balance between like checking that and being like, okay, this is a microaggression that I have to like work through?
I mean, I think the job that I just finished before my life in these temporary work fees, right now, I worked as like a financial aid call center rep, and I think I had 2 really triggering moments. We were in this like morning meeting, and they had just hired the second black woman on the team. Everyone else was either a white male or a white female. And this like older like white coworker of mine, they were all talking about politics for some odd reason. I just feel like you should know not to talk about that in the workplace in 2017. And she was like, oh, you know, I think we've made so much progress. You know, I hope things never go back to the way they were. And I was like, oh, me too, because that could get real awkward for me. And then slavery. And I think I made everybody uncomfortable in that moment. But the same coworker who said something about like politics also asked me if I wanted to be white. She asked me this while we were on the job, like on the clock. I had asked to borrow her staff ID, which I had done before, and she never made like any odd comments. So when I asked her the second time, she was like, oh, you want to be white? Haha. I'm like, no, I just wanted to get into this room. I don't understand why. What? No? Like, I looked so flabbergasted. And then she, like, peeks around my cubicle 5 minutes later and it's like, you know, that was a really odd thing to say, Tiffany.
No shit, sure.
Wasn't it? That was so odd. Came back the day after and was like, I had a conversation with my son. And my Bobby told me, that was a really uncool thing for you to say, Mom. Mom, I don't think you should have said that. I'm like, but why did this like 50-year-old woman need her like 18-year-old neoliberal son to say that you probably shouldn't go around asking brown people if they want to be white? It's probably not. She was like, you know, I just don't see color because God doesn't. So
religion.
So yeah, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
I feel like it's not even like necessarily the triggers in your personal life. You can be like, I don't like the way this person talks. I'm going to avoid them. Like, you can't do that at work. Like, you're like, I see you every day. I have to be here. I have to. I think it's the lack. It's not what people are saying. It's the lack of freedom to react the way that you normally would. Like, it's just like, oh, I'm hearing these things or I'm seeing these things. Maybe I'm a minority in the workplace and I don't know how to like express like how I feel. You know what I mean? Yeah. How I feel in this moment in a professional, quote unquote, way.
I know that for me in my previous position, it wasn't necessarily a race thing. Like, I never had any interactions with anyone that made me feel uncomfortable, besides, again, for the guests, because most of them were of not, you know, they were not minorities. But I saw it in the way that the company was kind of broken down. So like the upper management, anybody that was a decision maker, they were mostly Caucasian. Anybody that was in any kind of maintenance, any kind of the service positions, the restaurant, engineering or anything like that, they were of some type of minority, especially the cleaning people. So I feel like that was more of the driving force behind anything of that, you know, with race relations. I know that a lot of companies currently do have issues with race relations and they're trying to make strides towards it. So you'll see in a lot of companies now, they'll have
diversity boards.
Yeah, you'll have diversity boards, or you'll have someone in a position that is doing some type of inclusion training, or they have some type of inclusion or diversity policy. So companies are kind of making strides towards that, but we're still not there yet. And unfortunately, the way that our, you know, the president and his constituents are, I don't know, it's going to take a while.
I feel like that's such an important point to make. Like, at this job, I had a supervisor. She was white, but she was very like understanding. Like, I understand, like, some of the times she would ask things, I'm like, I don't know if she'd have asked it this way, but I felt comfortable talking to her. And I feel like having someone in a job where you're like, hey, like, this is how I feel, and you don't feel like your job is in danger by doing so. Like, I could be like, hey, can I schedule a 10-minute like meeting with you? And just be like, hey, this person said this. I'm not too sure what the intentions were, but it's making me feel uncomfortable. And having her be like, okay, I'll give a chat with it. Like, just that, like, having someone to be like, hey,
something
this is what I'm experiencing. Yeah. And them seeing you beyond, oh, you're throwing the race card or whatever. Just like, oh, I understand how this could be making you uncomfortable. Is like useful. And like, in addition, like in my current job, there's someone that I like went to school with before, and like her and I are the only people of color. Seeing how she expresses her race without necessarily apology, like it has limits to it, but seeing that and learning, oh, it's okay to explore that more, having come from a job where it's like, oh, you're the only, or you're like the only black female. Like I was the only black female at my old job. And it's like, oh, okay, there are different ways to express myself that may still be professional, but still express who I am as a person. And like, I think seeing that representation, like the R word, like that representation of like, oh, you can do it this way and that too can work is very useful.
I think it's great to have like work environments that are very open to that. I think like my previous job would not like be open to that at all. And also like my previous job was predominantly like I worked with predominantly black people, but in terms of like my concerns as like a woman, like I could never like really voice that there. Whereas like currently at the job that I work at now, I could voice like I feel very comfortable voicing like problems with like race issues or problems with me just, you know, being a woman and like that they like very much flourish, you know, or encourage that. Yeah. So it's like if you have a problem, like they take it very seriously. And I think that having that like comfortability level is like really important because you don't feel silenced or you don't feel like you won't be heard.
Right.
And because that's not a thing that's present everywhere, apparently there is a hashtag Black Women at Work that took over Twitter a while back. And I'm scrolling through some of my favorite things. So Black women shared like some of the trash assness that they deal with on a daily basis at work. And some of my favorite were, oh, you're so well spoken, hashtag Black Women at Work. Someone said, took a class for work. Teacher asked for definition of marketing. I gave perfect answer. He asked me if I Googled it. Hashtag Black Women at Work. Let's see. There was another one that said, where's hair out? I like your hair. Where's a bun? You cut your hair? Where's hair out again? New hair? You change it so much. Hashtag Black Women at Work. Is there anyone else I could speak with? No, this is my department. Hashtag Black Women at Work. Yeah. Just thought I'd share some of those.
The hair one really resonates with me. My work study position, like I wore my hair out one time and like my supervisor was like, oh my God, is that all yours? Like how is that? How could that be? And I was like, yeah.
Because it's on my head.
Like it was, oh my God. So it's
I understand the like curiosity with it, but it's so awkward in the workplace. Like when I first started working at my old job, I had it like in like a straight and short cut. And then slowly let it just not be straightened. So I had it in braids and then I let it be natural. It was so awkward. It was just really awkward because it was like looks of absolute shock every time I walked in with
oh my God, what is she doing?
Did you cut it?
And I would have to think about it. Like if I was braiding my hair and needed a break, I would be like, all right, I'm going to unbraid it on Friday, rebraid it on Sunday because I don't want to shock my coworkers too much. Like it would literally be like, I need to think about this because I'm going to spend literally 3/4 of Monday just looking and shocked.
Extensions
would
really
not
throw them
only
a
are
loop.
you underpaid and like overconsumed by this job, you have to sit and be like, what's the like least shocking thing I can do to my aesthetic so as to avoid these questions so I can actually do my job and not like take 10 minutes out my day to explain Kaninkalon hair to you.
Yo, when I had gray locks, I had so many customers be like, that can't possibly be yours. And I'm like, no, of course it's not. Or how did you get that up there? Just like, I know that's not yours because yesterday you weren't like that. And then one lady like took it upon herself to explain to me, why would you want that? You're such a young woman. You're so beautiful. Why would you want that in your hair? It just like mind boggled so many people. Like,
oh my God, I have a story. So there was this one time I was at work and I had a weave in my hair and I was like, you know, you black, so you know you gotta smack your head when it itch under all them tracks. And I was like patting my head and one of the like guests saw me. It was like a white male, like two of them, and they were like, oh my God, and they just like started mimicking me like I was like a monkey or something.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, wait, what's happening? And they like, oh, ha, ha, ha. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is kind of racist that you're doing that, though, but okay, whatever.
Oh, no.
I mean, I feel like
it's like onlookers or
in the past,
right.
Like it would have been fine to have those questions to be like, oh, like what's happening? We have Google now. I'm like, there's no reason to make people uncomfortable. And I think it's okay if you have that relationship with a coworker to ask like, hey, I like your hair. What did you do with it? But if you don't have that relationship, don't do that. That's like me being like, oh, did you go to the tenant? Whatever. I don't know. Whatever question would be the equivalent of that. It's just like, I'm
You're
uncomfortable.
much browner. Did you go
I'm
tanning?
uncomfortable. Discomfort. Like,
Yeah.
I've just never kind of been like, why is your hair like that? I've never asked a like non-person of color, why is your hair like that? How do you get it without texture? Why doesn't your hair curl? What's wrong with it? I've never. That would be the
I feel
equivalent.
like that's not the intention though, but I think because
Sometimes
we're already
it is.
maybe sometimes there are exceptions.
But you
Sometimes
what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say sometimes that is the intention, but even when it's not, it's just the fact that you're already at work, already feeling like you have to put up some kind of face,
Yeah.
and then now you're getting these little
Yeah.
attacks that feel very gigantic because you're like, I'm just trying not to stand out.
And I
Please
think
don't.
Yeah.
I think it's like hard to balance the line between like, oh, this is genuine curiosity and somebody just wants to know, and then between like really like you think I just went and got this from off of a horse? Like it's just like I don't know like where the balance. I know it's not my job to like educate anybody on that, but you know it's like I don't know how you make it approachable necessarily.
Like,
but
what can these jobs do to like make us? I don't know if
Like,
they need
print
to
out a
make us
chart?
feel more comfortable. I don't know. Maybe like, does everyone need like a pamphlet on like black hair and like
Do
sensitivity
you think
training?
it's on the jobs to do that? Like, do you think they're responsible for?
I think
making
it's
us feel
responsible only because now you have legislation that's been passed that it's legal for companies to discriminate against you because you have dreadlocks. So
That's true.
that is a cultural thing that black people or Jamaican people or anyone, that usually a minority is going to have that hairstyle. So that's basically, taking a race out of the running for a position because of the way that their hair looks. And that does not mean that you can't do the job. So I think that it is a job's, they should do that. They should allow someone to be exactly who they are because they're not there to impress you with the way that they look.
Like, I think these jobs need to be able to get a handle on microaggressions. I know people can't really control what might come out of like coworkers or customers' mouths or something, but it's something in like a coworker, for example, that makes them feel comfortable and secure enough in their job because they probably know they aren't going to face repercussions, and they probably know that you're not going to go to like boss man Gary and be like, Gary, Susie Q said this really upsetting thing about my hair.
That's like a good point. Remember my house, like my old coworker. So, all right. So I had this like white female coworker who would always call out black male coworker on his male privilege. Like literally every day would be like, oh, check your male privilege. And I'm like, he can't check your privilege in any world. So
Right.
for you to say that, I would stop her,
really-
but he felt uncomfortable. He would be like, yo, like that literally throws my day for a loop. And like the fact that he can't say what is in his head, but you can't, is that is a problem inherently. And I think
Yeah.
when people realize I'm at work, like she might be thinking that, but I feel like she's an adult. Like you need to sit there and be like, I'm at work. How can I make my coworkers more comfortable? And
Well, not
and vice
even that.
versa.
It's
Like
just-
just like that's not okay.
Have,
Like, you-
why does have some common sense? And I know common
Yeah,
sense isn't
yeah.
common, but have some common sense. If you wouldn't want somebody to say certain things to you, then don't
don't
say
do
that to
it.
somebody else. And that
Yeah.
your mom teaches you that when you're a child. So treat others how you want to be treated.
Right.
That's it. That's simple. If you're at work, shut your mouth. You don't have to say anything about my appearance. You don't have to, anything that's related to my work, you have the authority to say something about. Other than that, my personal life, don't ask me about my family, my kids, my cat, my dog. Don't ask me what I'm doing after work. We don't got to go for drinks. None of that. Mind your damn business. I'm going to go home. You're going to act like I don't exist. And when I come back, I exist again. I live in Narnia other than that.
That sounds like a healthy work environment.
It
to
sounds
me.
like a healthy work
I
environment.
just crazy.
I like wonder like, well, you're always going to get people like that at work. You're always going to get coworkers. So it's like, what can we do to sort of like protect ourselves in terms of like, like having to process or like reevaluate like some of these things that are said to us.
It's not your job. That's not your job.
I know, but you can't really. It isn't your job, but like microaggressions is like very like new for some people in terms of like education. So some people just don't understand, and I mean you can like talk to them and like educate them, but that also shouldn't be your job either. So in terms of like arming yourself, like what what do you do, you know, or like
I think like if you have some kind of tag team, like in the situation I just described, instead of the person saying anything, I would say stuff, and then when stuff was said about me, he would say stuff for me, because then it's like less direct than like me having to say, or him being like, no, you can't say that. I could be like, hey, like, you know, that makes them feel uncomfortable, right? Like, look at his face. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, he's told me, makes him feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it would be a setup where you have at least one person that you
is
feel
on your
comfortable
side,
with.
yeah.
So, like, you're like, they know exactly how I feel when these things happen, and they can stand up for me and be like, hey, that, like, immigrant joke you just made, you know, that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? Can you not? So, like...
Yeah.
I don't know, even if it's in a joking way, because I feel like it's a workplace is somewhere that just unites people who would not normally be around each other's circles. So it's probably equally jarring, but it's like, hey, like, I'm here to work. Like C said, like, I'm here to work. If it's not about my job, I don't really care right now. Like, can we not do that? And like addressing that, and I don't know.
I
keeping
So
it-
do supervisors need to do better?
I think
I think they need to create a safe space. Like, that's their job. I think when you're at a certain level, your job is to create the environment that people are working in. Your job is not necessarily the nitty-gritties, but your job is to make sure that the people who are working under you are in an environment that you're controlling. So if you're not doing that, I think you are failing partially as a
I
student.
also think people need to understand their history in the workplace. So
Yeah.
like if like especially like if you are a supervisor and you are of like if you're white descent, like you need to understand like your communication and like with your other like, you know, minority like coworkers, how you may come off or what you may sound like in terms of like, I guess, giving orders or instructing, you know, I think that's important because I've seen it so many times happen in my workplace where like, you know, a white supervisor is giving instruction to like, you know, a black coworker and they're just like coming off all types of wrong because they don't see themselves like in terms of like the historical structure or that weight, like what they're saying and how that might sound.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody.
I think it's both ways too.
No, I mean, and I agree with that, but I'm thinking from the standpoint of a supervisor. I'm like a lot of the times they go for that position, but nobody teaches you how to think for other people and the longevity and the history of them, of their people. So that's a lot to kind of expect for somebody that isn't from that descent to know. But what I think should be the answer for that is institutionally based. So if the company is giving training to their supervisors and their managers on diversity and inclusion and just, you know, the way to kind of manage people in general, then it'll translate a little easier for them dealing with people of all races, because a lot of the times people who are dealing with the microaggressions don't feel comfortable bringing that to an authority.
But that like starts with the company.
Yeah, that starts with the company,
like,
though.
That we have like people in here who might interact with each other in certain ways
That would make them uncomfortable. Yeah, but I don't think that you should put that weight on a manager.
No, I'm not saying like individually. Well, yeah, I mean, I was saying like individually, but I as a suggestion or as I'm like stating it, like if you are listening, like there you go. Like that's just something to think about. And I don't think people think about that every day. Like I think about it. Like I think about it in terms of me being a person of color, but like, or a woman, but like, you know.
And companies always like focusing on the bottom line. I think that is beneficial to the bottom line of the company. Like if people are uncomfortable, I worked for 2 years and left. Like they're gonna work for 2 years, if that, and leave, and you're gonna have to retrain people all the time. If people feel comfortable in a space, they can create it into a way that's comfortable and they can stay there and they can contribute more. Like if you're not comfortable at lunch in the lunchroom, you're not gonna be comfortable in meetings. You're not going to contribute as much to the growth of the company. You're not gonna give a shit about it. So like
But speaking of the insensitive supervisors, let's go a little more in depth with the worst supervisor you've ever had. If you feel like they were, in fact, you know, that terrible, I guess that's subjective. But
So I guess I can start that rodeo. It's actually just recently I had a supervisor give me an assignment. We were working on some like a letter from the president, and they had a PS in there. So a PS in a letter that was going to be seen outside of the context of actual letter, it was more like a welcome page. Didn't make any sense to me, so I kind of like took it out and put it into the body of the, you know, the welcome. Once it was given to the president, they kind of like, well, where's the PS? So it was brought back to me. And I kind of was trying to explain, oh, well, you know, it wouldn't make sense in the context that you're using it. The PS wouldn't make any sense here. Oh, well, what degree did you get? I'm like, I have a master's degree in English and creative writing. Oh, I thought you would have knew that. And I'm like, it was so, jarring. I'm like, so you're going to call me incompetent while also kind of digging into my educational background, and that was offensive, and I almost lost my job that day because I was going to cuss her out. But that was kind of one of the lowest digs that I kind of had in my career so far, with someone kind of like kneeing me in my education.
While you were right.
While I was right. Yeah. Yeah. But
Seems like that's usually how it goes. I had a supervisor who didn't necessarily dig into my educational background, but it seems like, I don't know if they can like smell the youth on you.
Yeah.
But I think anyone who's usually under the age of 30, they always like low key but high key trying to like play you, even though you tend to have the same credentials. If not more, because most of us are coming into this with a lot more tech skills, and just a lot more kind of non-academic know-how. Than some of our like older cohorts, because we have to. They really don't care what you study. They want you to have certifications and know how to like fight fires and like get cats down from trees. And I had a supervisor who would like schedule like one-on-ones like 10 times a month and basically sit there and talk about how, oh, you can't just sit here and do nothing. You know, that's not how it works in the working world, Tiffany. It used to be that you can get a job and stay there for 10 years and, you know, maybe work your way up. But, you know, I'm not feeling the ethic on your part. I'm like, but I'm like one of the top 2 performers here, so I'm not understanding what you're saying. Oh, you don't understand. You know, that's not how it works in higher ed anymore. In order to like move up in higher ed, you got to do X, Y, Z. But you 3 years older than me. What?
I think there's some.
I feel like we graduated the same year, supervisor.
Ageism there.
And it's like he kind of wants to like sit there and act like I too didn't go to school, or like I too don't know a little bit about how like the working world. This was not my first job. I was not straight out of college when he was sitting there trying to like mansplain and lecture to me.
Yeah.
Like it felt really personal because I don't know. I'm like, maybe I was being a little like overly sensitive or something, but like as a person of color, it sounded like he was out here like, I'm gonna need you to pick yourself up by you. I'm like,
by your bootstraps?
Sir, I'm like, I don't have the leisure to like sit at this job and underperform and not do anything. So don't sit here and like tell me about how I have to get to the top as if our paths are the same. They literally are not. I can do everything you've done to get where you at, and I still won't have half of what you have. So don't sit here and give me this bullshit.
Like an episode of Scandal.
Like I'm about to ruin you. I don't know. I feel like my worst supervisor was like, you know, those people that you can tell like they're not a fan of you. They don't want to say it, but they really like little things would annoy. Like, good morning. She was like, oh, you're so happy this morning. Like, ma'am, I'm just trying to start my day right. I don't understand what's going on. Like small things like, oh, we didn't get overtime unless we asked for it in advance. And I used to do 7 to 3:30 or like 8 to whatever. Anyhow, it would be like 3:25. She'd be like, oh, I have this extra task for you to do. This one time I was like, oh, I have a dentist appointment at 4. I need to go. She was like, well, you have to do this. If you don't do it, the embryos are going to thaw and like you have to deal with that tomorrow. Essentially a threat to like me getting fired. Like you have to do this. And, oh, can you call them to cancel the appointment? And I'm like, I'm not getting money for this. There is someone else who's here. Her reason was literally like, oh, I trust you to do this, which I get. But I'm like, you can't just. You don't own me. Like, I can't just be here at your beck and call. In meetings, if it was like, if I didn't explicitly nod my head or say anything, I would legit have a meeting right after about an attitude. I'm like, you're the first human I've ever met who says I have an attitude. Like, what do you need from me? I think it was like one of those, like, when a supervisor wants to get close to you and they feel that resistance and there's some kind of resentment of like, no, you must engage in the company culture. And it's like, I don't want to. Please let me be great. So like that was my worst experience because I couldn't place her energy. And like, it was like, oh, I like your work, but I probably don't like you as a person. And it's like, I don't know what you want from me. Like you want me to do all the work for everyone. But at the same time, you like attack bits and pieces of who I actually am, and I can't really be around you like that for that reason. So it was just jarring. I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation, and I don't know who to tell because this person has more power over me in this situation. They have the power to be like, listen, let's fire her. That's it. And I don't know, it was just very jarring.
Those
and
power dynamics are like something. Like at my former workplace, like I am generally like a pretty bubbly person in terms of like coming, you know, for customer service, interacting with customers. And the same thing with like my coworkers. So like when I had like a coworker kind of like say some things that are in retrospect kind of questionable to me, I didn't realize like what was happening. Like I didn't realize that like some of these like things probably shouldn't have been said. And so one time he was the acting supervisor for like my particular shift. And one time I happened to be like really late coming back from like from my break. And that was just like on my part. And then, like the way in which he reprimanded me was like I was like a child, like literally in the front, like lines of where people exit the store, like people were watching, and he was like kind of yelling at me. And what he kept saying was that like, you know, I'm a 65-year-old man. Like, you know, why you gonna be like coming back from break late? And, you know, and he kept reiterating his age amongst like other things. And it didn't click to me until afterwards that he might have been recalling some of the behavior that he had, you know, some of the things that he might have said before in his reprimanding, and use that as like kind of a source to kind of get that out. And I never like I never really thought about like how the way kind of like power dynamics and sexual harassments kind of like erupt in the workplace. You know, I told my mom about it, and she like told me like, you know, that's something that like, you know, if when he said those things, you should have said something about it right away, because, you know, but when people say like offhanded or off-colored things to you like that, I just try to like, because I'm so uncomfortable, I try to like move it off as like joking.
Yeah.
So like I just was like, oh, whatever.
It catches you off guard.
Yeah, it
like
does.
I wish I could like pull out my paragraph and be like, these are all the reasons why what you just did is wrong.
It's wrong, yeah.
But like when you're in that moment, you're still trying to wrap your head around, did they really just say this to
Yeah.
me?
And it builds up.
Yeah.
It really builds up. Like I feel like even like with the same supervisor, when she was about to quit, she didn't tell anyone, but she started like low-key training someone in our position who only had like maybe 2 months of experience more on her job before she quit. And then we all had to apply for the job. So it was kind of like you already picked someone who looks like you, has the same background as you, the person you like the most, started training them. And I have no one to tell that this is what happened, because you're about to quit and you don't care. And it's, I don't know.
There's such a lack of like
accountability.
humanity.
Humanity.
I guess that escalated quickly, but like humanity, even in like the little things. I mean, what I'm doing now is a temporary job, so there are no benefits and you don't get paid overtime. So if you understand that, supervisor, if I'm trying to get home, you know, at a decent hour, you know, I don't make overtime and it's half an hour past the time I'm supposed to leave. I like left one time. She was like, oh, you could have called me on my cell phone. My supervisor was like in a meeting or something. It's 7:30. And I'm like, again, I don't make overtime at 7:01 unless you're paying me for this extra minute. I need to leave. I need to go home. So I left. I didn't know where y'all was, didn't know what was happening. So I locked the office door behind me and went home. I came in the next day and she was like, first of all, today's your comp day. We don't need you today. Go home. Second of all, how dare you leave and not tell anybody? That was most inappropriate, Tiffany. Most inappropriate. I'm like, first of all, grandma.
I know, right?
I didn't appreciate her tone. I didn't appreciate that no one alerted me that they didn't need me for the workday. So I spent money on transportation that I didn't have to come into the office, only to be sent home.
Yeah.
Trash. Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel like they need to work on like that whole, like if you're trying to like, even if you're in the right of way of like trying to like tell somebody or tell an employee that they're like, you know, they did something wrong or whatever, there needs to be like a certain protocol for that. Like you don't have to turn into somebody's mom or somebody's dad like all of a sudden. Like there's a way we can do about this as adults. And
they really do like to treat people under 30 that way.
Like children, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
So while we're on the verge of wrapping it all up, we're all either in the process of getting our second degrees or our first ones, or have 2 or 1, 3 or 4 of them.
Lord.
Do you feel like any of that has or will make a difference kind of in your ability to, I guess, maybe get to a position of power in whatever field you want to be in, and in order to like find some joy in having a job?
No.
Maybe.
No.
I am not optimistic about any of this.
Has it helped you thus far?
I have a master's degree. Okay. So I spent the last like 20 some years of my life in school, and it's made no difference in my opinion. I am seriously in debt, like a lot. Like it's like a lot.
Like a lot?
Like a lot. It could be more, but I'm pretty sure I still can't afford to pay because I don't make enough right now to pay off anything, unless I just like lived at home with my mama and was like, Mama, for the next year you gotta feed, clothe me, give me spending money, all of pay my car note and insurance and all of it. Then maybe I could like halfway pay it off, and still would be in debt for like another 20 some 30 some grand. So no, I don't think it'll help. I think it's about the people you know and not what you actually get a degree in. A lot of the jobs that you end up going for, they want you to have a certain level of experience that you are not going to have having just gotten out of college.
Tell me about it.
They're like, hey, we want 6 years of experience in this one thing, because a lot of jobs want you to come in with the training already. Because again, like we said already, there is no one to train you. So the training is shit when you get there because they want you to already know the job. So they want you to come in with the experience already, so they can just kind of throw you in, and it's like whoever was in that position never left. So I don't think, unless you're going for certifications and you're always getting on the job training, your degrees will not help.
How about you, V?
I feel like it can help depending what you get your degree on. Like if you get your degree in something technical that no one else can do unless they have a degree in that, like I guess with my undergrad, that would be more useful than my master's at this point. Like if you are a bio major, you have that experience. There aren't many people who are like, oh, I can just do things with a pipette. So like that
What
can
is
be
that?
That's another episode. Focus.
So like that can be beneficial. But at the same time, I think maybe. I think Sierra's right that you don't need a degree to find the success you want. But I think the same way that we're like in dating, like, oh, it's not just about just having any old person that you're with, like having certain expectations and knowing what they are. Sometimes you might have to sacrifice money for that. But I'm still hopeful that there are jobs out there that feel probably jobs that we start, but also if you look at the Googles of the world and stuff like that, assuming that's an aspiration someone's looking up to, like I know there are probably more companies in different fields that have that same feel, like where you might not, I don't think there's any job where you're working for someone where you'll be like, I have total freedom, I can do whatever I want, and I feel entirely comfortable all the time. But I think there are jobs where you can feel more of that, and unfortunately they're more on the higher end of like whatever skills they are, even if it's like within any field, like writing or whatever it is, but you have to work a certain amount to get there, which hurts because it feels like, oh, I'm paying my dues with some hope that someday like it's gonna pay off. So I think maybe
I found that when we got out here, we were all competing for like jobs that either didn't require any kind of a degree or jobs that required 2-year degrees, and it just felt very like
Offensive.
a little offensive, but like mostly disenchanting. But like particularly if you were anything in the liberal arts,
Oh God.
you need to elevate. You need to know how to like write some code, make some code, draw some stuff, design some stuff. That's why Ashley gonna be popping, and I'm gonna live in her basement because she gonna be somebody in life. Because I feel like
That's a lot of pressure.
graphic design and like media stuff is popping right now.
I think it depends on what you want to do too. Like I feel like for artists and like creatives, like more so, I think a degree can be very like indifferent. So it's more about like your work. And so that's why sometimes it's a bit of frustration, like in certain fields where like I'd rather just be like creating all the time, or I'd rather like figure out how to get myself to create more versus like actually just sitting down in classrooms, because I know at the end of the day, it's all going to be about what I've made or the work itself. That portfolio is like everything. And also connections help too. But having like a portfolio, having something to be able to show people, like a website or something, having a series.
Mm-hmm.
All that's gonna
Or
be
a
like
podcast.
super
You need to
important.
prove that you're valuable.
Yeah.
To people.
Well, yeah, people want you to
Yeah.
come again. Like I said, they already want you to come in with some type of commodity, so that they
Yeah.
just have to build on it. They don't have to start from the ground up. They don't want to put the effort in to make you something. And we should talk about lack of mentorship. But
Turn up.
That sounds like something we got to mention in our final thoughts. There might be a part 2 to this. We might talk about 11 to 7s or 8:30 to 6s. I don't know. It's gonna be a part
Or
2
1 to
that.
9:30s.
Or 7 to 3s.
We're gonna talk about shift work. Like it's
Oh,
gonna be a
Lord.
part 2 to 9 to 5s and staying alive. But did anybody have any final thoughts they want to share
No, it's good.
on jobs and being a millennial?
I mean, it's just rough out here right now, and I don't think that we are getting enough credit as millennials in the workforce because we're looked at as like complaining or like
Lazy.
lazy, or we don't want to put in the effort. And it's like, no, we're putting in the effort, and we're also like really fucked up while we're doing it. So can we get a little bit of pat on the back for all of the work that we're trying to do? We're actually one of the most degreed up portions of people right
And
now.
stepped into an economy that people twice our age like crashed.
They crashed it. Well, it was just crashed like what, the early 2000s?
2008 recession.
So, I mean, we're coming high off of a recession, and they think that we're supposed to have the white picket fence, the house, the dogs, the cats, the husband, the wives, and, have 2 houses and like 7 cars. And it's like, that's not realistic. We could barely get an apartment.
And you can't get houses for like $10,000
know.
anymore. So
And college used to be free. So,
I also think it's important to like always remember the self-care, but no, seriously, like take care of like your mental health, and then also like reevaluate like some of those things that are like put towards you as like, this is the American dream, get all these things, because they're so important. Not to say that they're not, but like it takes some time to really figure out what you want. Like, I mean, I'm still figuring that out. Like I might not want to live in a big house, and I might not want like all the fancy amenities, but like I feel like it take some time to get to know yourself, like aside from what like the world is trying to tell you what you should be, and be okay with that in this very moment.
I agree with that. Like, I think just doubling up on the idea of like, we're not just like, oh, I'm gonna date any old person as long as they're a person, but that's how we literally look at that's how we look at jobs. We're like, I'm just gonna take a job as long as it's paying me. That's literally the equivalent of being like, can you walk? Can you walk down an aisle? Can you talk and say I do? Cool, we're getting married. Like, that's the equivalent of attaching yourself to a job. I think we need to expect more for ourselves, and more doesn't mean higher paying. I think it just means a place where you feel safe to work. And, yeah.
because remember, you're probably going to spend half your life working where you work. So
you spend more time at work than you do at home.
and because
with
you
your
probably
family or
have
friends.
downtime at work, reminder that we want you to slide in our DMs. We're going to try to start letting you guys know what our topics are in advance. So we want you to slide in our Twitter and Instagram and Facebook inboxes with stories and, answers to any questions we might be asking you guys on social media. And I want to thank you guys for listening to the Get Your Life Project. You can find us on the Book of Faces, Twitter and Instagram at GetYLP. That is hashtag GetYLP. And as usual, we're going to leave you with our little ditty that goes something like, friends,
How many of us have them?